So we've got things going on multiple levels, and it's purposefully a little bit confusing, right? Because that tends to be how politics works, is purposeful confusion, right? No new news to anybody here. So we've got one bill going through the state houses. We've got a bill called 266, and it's being spearheaded by Assembly Member Bonta, but he's being joined by Jones Sawyer and Cooley
of course.
and Lackey. So when you have a bill that has 4 authors from all different directions, they have what's called courtesy votes. So that, and there shouldn't, in a democracy, there shouldn't be courtesy votes, right?
No.
People shouldn't be voting for something because it's a quid pro quo. It's like, hey, I voted for your thing, you're going to vote for my thing. But unfortunately, that's kind of how politics works in the state house. So this bill will pass. The only good thing that's going on with it is that we got on the floor and we spoke, and we got the senators asking things like, why doesn't this bill do anything for patients?
Yeah.
You guys don't know what a huge, big step that is, because this is so industry filled. This is only about the people in the cannabis industry that have money. It had so little to do with patients, it's unbelievable. We have Don Duncan from ASA getting up and saying, hey, I'm the biggest representative of patient advocacy. We all know that's bullshit. He's the biggest representative of the dispensaries that he represents that give him money in Los Angeles. And basically made it so that only the collectives that paid the union and ASA got their foot in the door. So, of course, you have all of these unregistered collectives because people are not going to go back underground, but they're taking an unnecessary risk. And they want to kind of further sharpen the screws that they're driving in on this coercive monopoly, on this basically content that really supports private cartels and making them into public cartels in a really unlawful manner. So there's a huge problem with this carve-out for the city of Los Angeles. And then the other thing it does for the entire state is it dismantles SB 420, which went through in 2003 with Mark Leno. And what did that do?
It was great. It made so we could grow collectively.
It made it so that we could grow collectively. The medicine that you're smoking right now comes from collective gardens, not big corporate fields, not warehouses that are owned by, merchants. It comes from small collectives. But the basic thing that these lobbyists are doing is they're making the small collectives the problem. They're saying that's how diversion happens. That's how medicine gets out of the state or out of the legal market.
Bullshit.
And we all know that that's complete, utter, what?
Bullshit.
What?
Bullshit.
What?
Bullshit.
What?
Bullshit.
Thank you. That is complete and utter bullshit. Every single patient that's a member of a collective that actually gets some compassionate care knows that's not how things get out of state or get into the wrong hands. They're basically blaming, they're making a scapegoat out of collective farming. And what needs to happen for patients is that collectives need to be allowed to exist, but they need to be tracking their medicine as well. That's the solution. It's so simple. You don't destroy the compassionate gardens.
Thank you.
You make sure that they're tracking the medicine from seed to sale and from seed to contribution. And that'll make sure that the medicine actually gets to the patients who gave them their paperwork. That is one big problem. We all know that. Is that poor patients, sick people, give their paperwork to people. And what? And get what?
Shitty medicine.
That's right. So one of the things that we need to do is say, no, don't destroy the small farmer, the smaller collectives. Track the medicine, make patient safeguards, protect against patient exploitation, and make sure that the patients get the medicine that they signed up for. This doesn't need to be difficult. It's not. It's really simple. Luckily, because we brought it to the surface, we had the senators actually asking on government television, why aren't we thinking more about the patients? Are the patients actually getting their medicine?
Yeah.
No doubt the qualified patient consumer who can pay $60.08 is getting their medicine. We don't need to worry about them. They're gainfully employed, because if you can spend $60 on an eighth twice a week, you are gainfully employed. I'm not saying that you're not sick. I'm not saying that you're not disabled. I'm saying that you are definitely gainfully employed if you can spend $100+ a week. Possibly, when you add that up, somewhere between $500 and $700 a month on your medicine, with no copay, with no insurance coverage, etc. So those folks are all taken care of. All the growers are taken care of. It's the patients, once again, that aren't entering into the legislation. So we worked really hard on bringing a patient voice to Sacramento. I think we have one more committee that this law will go into, and then I don't doubt it will pass through. So now it's not, is it going to pass? It's what's going to pass. And so I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the next couple of days writing some amendments and proposing these amendments for patients. So I really need you to send me your personal strength, because I think by now you know that I'm going to try to amend it to benefit the people that need it the most. I think after 10 years, you're kind of like, yeah, she'll probably be the one working on that.
MCLR.
Go get him, girl.
And then, if we end up with a crappy law, which we very may well,
Yeah.
you know, the people that are supporting this law are very, very, very organized, very wealthy. They want their farms secured. They want other people pushed off the map and made illegal. It's really obvious what's going on. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, and it's not a conspiracy, I guarantee you.
So this is recriminalization?
It's not recriminalization. What it is it's a coercive monopoly, or a bottleneck monopoly, which means there's only going to be a certain number of permits available, and the wealthiest people are usually the people that have the permit smoothers, the lobbyists, all of these, the ability to buy large amounts of land, etc. We're talking multi-billionaires now, not multi-millionaires.
But we can overturn this with MCLR, can't we?
Hold on. So let's say we end up with a law that has a few good things in it, but has a few really terrible things in it. What can we do?
Protest. And prohibition.
Vote against.
Scream and yell.
No, screaming and yelling won't do anything. We don't have a vote in the state house. We only can exercise our influence and express ourselves and offer amendments.
Take medical marijuana off the class A narcotics list as a narcotic and put it on the state board as a herb for number one. Take it off the class A list as a narcotic.
disagree with that. That's one thing, but that happens at the federal level.
Yeah.
Congress won't go with that.
You know, and it's going to take probably another 10 years to get it off the Controlled Substance Act. I mean, it's really ridiculous, but we are making some headway on the national level, which I'll talk about in a minute. What we do when we get bad law from the State House that's been over-influenced by special interests is we take it to the voters. Everybody's been handed an MCLR pin. That is the state ballot that I'm a part of, that Sandra's a part of, that John Martinelli's a part of, that Jason's a part of, that Denise is a sponsor of. We are proponents. We've added our legal name to the MCLR because this is what we're going to do. We're going to get a law that we're not going to be 100% about. I guarantee you. I guarantee you, because it's a law. We're not going to be comfortable with it. But we're going to try to take it to the voters in 2016 and somehow make some remedies for the really bad law that we'll probably get out of the State House. And we're going to try to make that law as best we can this summer. Right? We're going to try our best to make this a good state law. We're going to get it as polished as possible. We're going to put our heart and our soul into that. But we're going to put our spirit into taking this to the voters. Right? We got to take it to the voters because we always get a better law from the voters than we do the sort of political twists and turns. That's what we've got, and that's what we're passing around, and that's what we've been talking about the entire year. We've been working on a state initiative since 2013. We put our energy from AxisOfLove, from our advocates. We've been a part of this team, and we have a seat on the steering committee with our PAC, which is called Patients for Compassionate Use Policies. So we're taking it to the voters. That's the sort of final solution. But in the mix, we're going to be working at the state level to make sure that we can make this better. At the local level, we have a lot of things going on as usual. Our board is on recess right now. While they're on recess, we're going to try to develop a really good slate to run for the legalization task force that passed from Scott Wiener. What did AxisOfLove do for patients on the legalization task force effort? We amended that law because what it originally had was a seat for just a patient. Just a patient, whatever, a patient, right? We got that amended to someone that's a representative of a patient advocacy organization. So somebody that's been doing something for the patient voice. I will run for that seat. I don't know if I will get it. I am going up against the conservative of the conservative.
I'll run too.
You know, and it's difficult. And I hope that you guys will support me.
I will. Totally.
There's a seat for an MCD owner, and the only MCD owner that's compassionate that I know that's possibly running for it, and possibly a running mate of mine when we go into this, is Tariq from BASA. BASA has an affordable menu, and they've continued a compassion program since Tariq opened his doors.
Where is that at?
It's on
Divisadero.
Divisadero and what? Right there.
Grove.
Thank you very much.
So there's only a few dispensaries that we know that are consistent with their compassion programs. You know, and you guys need to take note of that. You need to ask as a patient advocate, even if you don't need compassion that day. Ask, see what they say. See where their judgment lies, how they look you up and down. If they ask you if they ask you for verification, see what their programs are about. Because even if you're not in need, you know somebody else is, and you know that their options are limited in a city that's supposed to be a sanctuary status. And, you know, we know we're always last in line, and we're still last in line, even when they're using us to say that we're first in line. And it's been a problem for the last 15 years. I've seen it since I was at Champ, you know. I've seen people front off the patients, you know, and the very same lobbyists will accuse me of doing the same. And it's hilarious, because if anybody knows me, they know that that's not true. 15 years running, we've been getting medicine to people and the truth about policy, you know? And so I hope that we can go into City Hall and that, you know, when we get to the final committee at the state level, I hope to find a donor that can get us a bus and get us all there. And even if I can't get us all there, we'll get the, you know, our head speakers there and make sure a patient voice is there. And I'm still looking for that sweet spot to open up a community center. Are we still at 1260 Mission? Yes, we are. Just the AxisOfLove tight patient advocacy team. We don't have a lot of room. I was dealing with a rent raise, so we opened up a gift shop that has papers, pipes just for cannabis, no tobacco. We don't sell tobacco or cannabis. And that's just so that we can keep that spot going and make sure that I have the space to organize for next year. So with that, I want to thank everybody for helping continue this tradition. Let's give ourselves a hand.
Yay.
Together, you know, I see friends that I met at Champ over a decade ago still coming together, and I see new friends as well. But I mean, it's pretty amazing. This doesn't happen in any other city with patients. I got to tell you guys.
It doesn't happen in other cities, huh?
No, it does not happen in any other city. They've got it so commercialized and industry zoned that people, the community, they try to wipe the community off of it. You know what I'm saying? And just make it an industry.
Yeah. Why doesn't the government crack down on the cannabis because of that? It's hypocrisy. Why doesn't the government call? Wait a minute. You all aren't doing what you promised to do.
Because they pay the government. Lobbyists basically are people that take money to the government.
Something is wrong that that's just allowed. I mean,
right. Well, in any other country,
egregious, and you know, it's just allowed to go on. I don't get it.
It is.
Wow.
And you know what they say? In any other country, what lobbyists do in America, in any other civilized country, would be called corruption. Yeah. Right?
Okay, hello for those that don't know too. I'd like to get shown a hand for those that don't know. She's been doing something for the patient since 1998, 17 years.
Like Cece and Melody and Denise and Kathy. And I mean, there's tons of people here that have been doing it just as long as I have, and I definitely can see that. But thank you, Cece, and I admire your activism as well.
Thank you.
And I know you're going to go to bat for tenants again. This lady does a lot of work with tenants' rights as well, which is, who here's a tenant? Oh, no homeowners, right?
Thank you.
So I think we should smoke a little bit more and enjoy a little bit more music.
Keep voting Democratic, you have to keep it public, for a public source for the code of the software that's being peddled at very high prices to counties, and the election officials have to get a grip on this, you know, around, and who's got the money. So they've got people where they want them, and it's making it really difficult. So I'd like you to talk about Harvey Milk and Amiano. We'll start at the beginning. How about that? Because voting is compulsory in Australia. So will voting systems adopt open source? And, you know, talk about open source voting some.
Well, at the beginning, I should say
a lot of this work comes from the sustainability activist community. The work really centered in the early days around UC Berkeley, a fellow by the name of Henry Brady, and he was working with Alan Deckert, and they moved the needle quite a bit and designed, Alan Deckert from Open Voting Consortium designed some good systems that now we are seeing pop up as designs in Los Angeles County. So they're still state of the art, and that's what's called an open source ballot printing system. But that was in the early 2000s, and since I got on board around 2004, when we were really seeing the outflow of HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, which put $4.5 billion of public money toward the vendors to provide the electronic voting systems. So my activism around San Francisco has been going on now for about 10 years, and as you mentioned, Raphael Mendelman and Tom Amiano and Chris Daly were some of the early adopters in San Francisco County for the notion that the system should be publicly owned and the software should be viewable by the public to make sure that it's operating properly. And so that is some of the beginnings. Supervisor Amiano at that time put together the Voting Systems Task Force for San Francisco County, and that work has turned out to be valuable in announcing a lot of the concepts that have continued to be validated time and time again. And as a matter of fact, we just saw a few days back the United States House of Representatives has now gone toward open source systems for their internal use.
As has Obama.
The president, who I am proud to say I was with on day one of his campaign, when he was then senator, I briefed him regarding open source software, and I think it was new information for him. So to see it come from that point to him calling for the government to move toward consideration of open source contracts is really a great thing. And now, of course, we believe our next step is to have open source voting systems, as that is really the most gravity-filled situation that we have for government.
So the software, now let's get back to the software having the very, very difficult codes that where you need a whole room full of software engineers. Even if they do hand you the codes,
Yes.
It'll take a whole room full of software engineers. It kind of reminds me of how the banking system was with their lending practices and making it so complicated that no one could understand it. It's one of those, is it that?
Well,
Is that right?
certainly complication is an element to wise guy behavior. So anytime anything gets overly complicated and the general public can't understand it, I believe it's problematic. But the current code is, yes, overly voluminous, and the fact is the current vendors would be hard pressed to disclose it. They have not done that. What they have done, one company, ES&S, and some others, but one company in particular, ES&S, put their code in escrow with the Secretary of State, and then come to find out in real estate, I own a green real estate company, an escrow is good. In elections, an escrow is not good when it comes to software, because ES&S was caught with different code in the field on the machines, a different code that was in the escrow account. So then Secretary of State Deborah Bowen fined them pretty heavy, but of course...
Didn't she kind of turn away from that and stop talking about it? And so she's basically, well, Deborah Bowen, now she's a public official that when she stopped talking about it after making open source her platform, and what did she drink, the Kool-Aid or something?
Well, I think All we know is for sure she went silent on the issue after campaigning, using it initially as part of her platform, and at that point, she, I think we know she had some other personal issues that got in the way of her tenure there, but regardless, the end result was we didn't see a lot of forward motion during her stint as Secretary of State, but luckily now we have a Secretary of State, Alex Padilla, who authored a bill, SB 360, which is very important to us as it lays a foundation for the kind of systems we prescribe, prescribe, I should say, the kind of systems we advocate to come into effect, and that's what's called a general public license, open source voting system.
Right, and that won't take a whole room full of software engineers to figure it out.
No, the amount of code is greatly lessened, and it's a lot more elegant, so that if you put it out for viewing, it would be understandable, and the idea is if there was something amiss with the code, it would be noticeable, which currently you would never know if there was a bug or something wrong with the code.
Like in the 2004 election, just sends shivers down my spine.
Well, we certainly went to bed thinking we had one president and woke up with another, and so
twice.
yeah. So we don't want to ever see that again, and we want a nice, clean, concise election with sturdy results. And with the current systems, of course, you cannot achieve that. And if somebody tells you that you can, that's a liar.
Yeah, they're trying to sell you something.
Yes.
So they have now San Francisco would be the first county to actually have open source voting the way it should be. I mean, there was talk about Los Angeles and Texas, somewhere in Texas having it as well, but there's something dodgy about the codes not being accessible enough, or what's wrong with their systems?
Well, they're announcing that they're moving toward open source systems in Travis County, Texas, and in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles is an unusual county because they have their HAVA money that I talked about at their disposal. So they've been looked at for leadership on this. We're not waiting for them. The fact is their lack of announcing general public license as their open source software gives us cause for concern, and so we and Travis County, Texas, has got Microsoft as a partner on their project. So we're not, optimistic about the chances of them taking the high road